Hi there, I'm David, your everyday human who loves to ponder on the reality within and beyond our known universe, and with that, try to find similarities between different schools of thought as a way to show that we're not so different after all. We, humans, and maybe others. Now, a while back, I was walking down the road. It was at TRM, Bika Road Mall, well, for my Kenyan friends. And on the other side of the road, I noticed a woman. And for lack of a better way to explain it, and pardon me for this, she looked homeless. Basically, her clothes were dirty and tattered. She had two kids. One she carried on her back, the baby, and her daughter she held her by the hand, her left hand, and she was guiding her. One thing that you would notice right away about this woman is that her legs, her feet, basically the bone structure of her feet were not how it's supposed to be. They were bent. So she, for also lack of a better word, she was a bit crippled. And not crippled to the level that she couldn't walk. She could walk just uncomfortably. It was like her feet were like this. So she was kind of like walking with her ankles, you know. Definitely you could tell that it's not comfortable, but she's grown used to it. So you don't know whether she was born that way or it's something that happened down her life. She had to cross a trench. Basically these trenches that are dug along the side of the road for drainage, and since she's an adult it was easy for her. And now her small daughter was scared to jump to the other side because she is small, and to her the trench was wide. This woman, obviously her mother, tried to guide her, tried to make her feel it's okay to jump to the other side, that she's got her. What caught my eye was this. Clearly, the state of this woman is the fact that it's not great. It's not something every one of us would want to be. Possibly homeless and crippled at the same time. And with that, you have two kids. But here's what caught my eye. She was smiling while guiding her child to jump over the trench, because the child was, at least she was small, but at least she was big enough to be able to make the jump. And the smile is what caught my eye, because in that moment this lady, she was happy, you know. I thought to myself, like, what makes a parent happy? There's one thing that actually does more than anything, is when their child needs them, their baby needs them. And in this moment, she felt needed by her child. And clearly, with her state, you could guess anything that has happened to her life. Maybe she has been neglected. Maybe she has lost her entire family. Maybe she has lost actually everything. You could never actually guess what has happened to her. But clearly, you can tell one thing. She has experienced quite a lot of negativity in her life. But despite all that, in this moment, her child needing her to guide her through this moment where she was scared made her happy. The point I'm trying to bring across is that moment touched me, and it got me thinking about the whole concept of suffering by itself. How do we view suffering? This question has been thrown around quite a bit, like, why do good people suffer? Another one that gets also thrown around a bit is, why does God allow people to suffer? Now, before I even continue, this is just a hypothesis. I started by saying I like to ponder on the reality within and beyond our universe. And when it comes to God, I have this theory. God doesn't have a play in it. In terms of, He designed a world and gave it an algorithm, basically an equation that I like to call balance, and then left. Well, not entirely left, but I'm done. That's creation. And what this algorithm does is basically cause and effect. Everything has different consequences. And it's not entirely that God lets things happen. It's basically things happen because of something, cause and effect. God be thinking, Father, for example, like I said, for lack of a better word, she was crippled, but she could walk, okay? Just not comfortably. And now I was thinking, if she was born like that, what could she have done? Or rather, what did her parents do for her to deserve such fate? But not only her, what could other people who are differently able have done for them to be born that way? What we see when we look at them struggle is the fact that they're suffering. Now here's the part where I actually bring my story, where my thinking was going. For the differently abled people, we kind of do think that they're suffering, especially those born that way. See, when I was young, I lost my hearing on my the right side. Yeah, I have to check for some reason. My right ear does, because it can't hear. For me, I lost my hearing before I could even comprehend what hearing is. With that, I've spent the most part of my life with a deaf ear. I actually thought people are like that. Like everyone is like me. Everyone has one good ear and the other one is deaf. That's what I thought. And I've lived for the best for my entire life, basically. Just okay. And when I tell people that I have a deaf ear, because a lot of times I have to do that, I'm forced to do that, because throughout my life I realized that some people get irritated when I have to, for example, when they talk to me and I can't hear them. For example, if you talk to me from this side, and I realize I do have some weaknesses like a sense of direction. When you call me from far, I won't be able to know where that voice is coming from. So sometimes I have to tell people that when you sit on my right side, I won't be able to hear you well. So you get the point. Now, most of the people I've told that, and who at some point have experienced I've had such an experience. I'm sure some of you have had an experience whereby you found that one of your ears was blocked for a moment or for a few days, name it. And the people who've experienced that always tell me how unbearable it was, how unbalanced they felt. But for me, that's life. That's life for me. I've never felt like I lack anything. And this is the point I was bringing across, the fact that having grown up like that, the people I tell that I have a deaf ear, some of them would think that if I experienced that for just a moment and it was unbearable, I basically suffered. How is this guy coping? Do you see the point that I'm trying to bring across? Suffering is relative in the sense that for me, I'm not suffering because I've adapted to living like that. And I didn't wrong anyone for that to happen. But for the people who have experienced that, the people who know what you're missing, they feel like they're suffering. They feel it problematic. But I don't, because I don't know what I'm missing. It got me to take that experience from my experience to the people who are actually born like that, who are born differently able. How are they suffering if they don't know what they're missing? I mean, they see other people with functioning limbs and functioning everything that is functioning for them that is not functioning for themselves. But they've never felt it. They've adapted to their disability. So what makes us think they're suffering? Essentially, they could be. A lot of them could be. There are those disabilities that can really be limiting. And for that, you could view them as suffering. But most of them, I would argue they're not. Essentially, we look at these people, not even just the disabled. That was just an example. Differently able, sorry. That was just an example. And we wonder, why does God allow it? Well, if a child is born differently able, science happened. You see, the law that I said God created and left it in his universe to function is science. The genetic conditions of the mother and father could have contributed, not even could have, majorly do contribute to how the kid develops, how the kid is born. And that is science. That's not God allowing things to happen. It's the same way when kids have premature sex and the girl becomes pregnant. It's not that God woke up and created a human being immediately. Science happened because that's what happens when intercourse happens without protection. So whichever state that kid is going to be born, that is science. And the part where God plays is, of course, the soul comes from Him, but the decision for that soul to exist comes from you. It comes from you deciding to keep the baby, and God allows it. When you decide to kill the baby, that's your decision, and the soul never gets to the kid. I came to the conclusion that God doesn't allow suffering. They are just consequences of our actions, and not just ours, so many of who came before us, because the world functions as it does because it's designed that way. I'll explain further why I think that by bringing this concept, good versus evil. Many people ask, why do good people suffer? This is where balance comes in. You see, it's my hypothesis that results that come from our actions depend on the actions themselves. Good actions have long-term results. Bad actions have quick results. In terms of this, when you help someone, you're not going to get the results of that immediately. You might even never get the results from that, because the results from you helping another or being there for someone else is they'll be there for you one day. But that is just a possibility, not an assurance. But what happens when you do a bad deed, for example, steal? You get instant gratification immediately. You get what you wanted immediately. So it's balance. Good, slow results. Bad, quick results. Does it make sense? Where I was going with this was the fact that bad things tend to happen to good people, because when you see a good person suffering, you might think they feel that. They feel the weight of the bad things happening to them. But you never really know, because for a good person, they might shoulder the burden for the sake of another. And to them, that's how they'd rather have it. That's just one case. And sometimes you see good things happening to bad people because, like I said, quick results. For example, stealing is the best that comes to mind right now. If I want anything, I just take it regardless of whatever. Right? If I get what I want, that's a good thing. According to me, that's a good thing. It's what I wanted, right? But for someone else, for example, the story of Don Bosco, if you know Saint John Bosco, one day the blankets in his orphanage were stolen. And what he said was, let them have them, because maybe they need them more than we do. Do you see the point? So it's a bad deed that had quick results for the thieves, but it was also good for John Bosco that he got to help. So basically, it's a balance. It's a push and pull for everything. Now, to finish, I think the law of the universe is balance, and you need to not lie on one. You need both. And I'm not saying sometimes you need to be bad and sometimes you need to be good. If you're good all the time, people will take advantage of you. And as much as you might be okay with it, it might not be okay with your life. So sometimes find that balance. You can't be too much of one. I don't think that's wise. If you're good, completely good, and this is something a priest actually told me, if you're completely good, you might not get things done because you'll get taken out. And sometimes you let bad things happen to prevent the worst from happening. And I think that's where God stands. Now, remember, I'm not an expert or claiming to be one. I'm just a thinker with a few thoughts and willing to share. If you find said thoughts enlightening, something to think about, or downright stupid, that's very much okay. Still, I appreciate you for watching and will allow myself a little giggle for those who subscribe, like, and see the video worth sharing. Until next time, asante sana, and God bless. See ya.